This meeting is a weekly meeting to coordinate sprint activities around the Crowbar 2 refactor. The intention of this meeting is to tell people what's gone on, tell the community what's gone on with Crowbar in the last week, where progress is, discuss process changes so that people can get more engaged if they feel like there are things that we should improve in the way we operate the project or collaborate with external parties, and then spend some time just trying to figure out what's coming next, how people can collaborate with us. If they're blocked, what we could be doing to help unblock them so they could collaborate. We run this as a live meeting because we feel like it's very efficient for people to be able to jump in. We are happy to communicate offline and asynchronously also about these very same topics. And we just felt that it was most expedient for everybody if we also offered live meetings. To keep this meeting fast and effective, we are not trying to do design work, although sometimes we will discuss it in the planning section. We have a separate live design meeting where we review important design elements that are coming up in the next few sprints. And those are held on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Central. We are trying to record all these sessions for people who miss them and then post the reviews. And we're also keeping notes in Etherpad. So there's a significant amount of documentation being generated in the wake of this. If there are any questions about that, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and we'll do that. Hopefully this is all pretty well documented in the history and information around the Crowbar 2 sprint, which you can find information about that off of the Crowbar 2 homepage, bit.ly Crowbar 2, where we've been keeping a lot of this information. So that additional preamble, we want to talk about what has occurred in this past sprint and some of the things that were accomplished. This sprint, oh boy, we saw some really interesting things happen. For it, one of the ones has been more internal facing, where we've been working on support for one of the new models of hardware, and we have that work going through our testing lab. The C6220 is the hardware model. That depending on your interest in the community, how closely you tie into the Dell work, that may or may not be interesting to you. We've also been making progress in committing code around UEFI support. UEFI support is a significant for large disks. So this is greater than 2 terabyte disks, and allowing Sledgehammer to do a process for UEFI. And then, hold on just a moment. Hey, Laura. Laura, I don't mind you guys talking, but I'm on the phone. Okay, can you take care of that since you're up? I apologize. So UEFI support is one of the things that came into the trunk. Currently, we're doing work on 2 different branches. Awesome. And the Rails and database work is also a subject of a lot of effort. That is on the Rails 3 and DB branch, where you'll see the majority of our commits. The UEFI support comes in on trunk. We have not yet merged those 2 things together. But you will see some of the changes for that. Also, Victor has been working on some changes to DevTool, which have not been committed in this sprint, but should be committed next sprint, to support requests that SUSE made in earlier planning meetings. That work has been ongoing, and one of the things we'll talk about in planning is going to need some support. The Rails, thank you for taking notes. The Rails 3 modeling work has been making a lot of progress. We've been building the core models in the in that branch, and what you'll see in that branch are things like node, bar clamp. Network has not come in yet. Proposal, a whole bunch of pieces relating to integrating nodes and bar clamps together. And Greg makes some big commits on Tuesday where we've started to integrate the service object changes. Service object, if you looked at the code very closely, is the thing that actually does the component that does the orchestration. Every bar clamp has an override for the service object, and so that is being tweaked considerably here. And so what's going on with all this is that we literally rewiring things. So underneath the covers, those models have come in. What we're doing, the strategy we've been taking is that we're using the existing metadata in Crowbar 1, which is the crowbar.yaml file in every bar clamp and the attribute data bag that's in every bar clamp to import the data. So you will see in the bar clamp model, there's an import. That import literally populates all of the database schema from the 1x metadata. It does that from a migration. So every bar clamp has to have a migration to do the import. We're expecting in 2x that people will not have to build those metadata files, or won't have to build as much of them, and those things will move into the migration, and you can populate the object directly, the bar clamp object directly. That's a real benefit with this because it'll allow you to upgrade the bar clamps as part of the bar clamp. That's why we're using the migrations for that. Another thing that's coming in on this, came in on this sprint is user authentication. So we've done some work on user auth models and UI screens. And so you will see that those screens have been added and the model's been added. We have not yet wired in user auth, but that will be coming in the next few sprints. That also is in the Rails 3 and DB branch. We made a decision in the design meeting to migrate the APIs to right now all the API calls use 1.0. In the APIs, we're going to be migrating them to use 2.x. That was a decision made in the design meeting. That migration is going to start happening over time. I'm going to try and leave in some of the 1.x while we do the migrations. Big chunks of the UI are being changed. So as these models change, we're rewriting the UI to use these models. It's simplifying the code, which is very positive in a lot of ways, but a fair bit of the UI is going to be broken while we make these changes. And Simon, I'm assuming that's you typing. Yeah. I feel like I'm typing. I'm going through this really fast. So you're doing a great job keeping up. Thank you. Greg or any of the Dell guys want to make comments in addition to that? Cool. Anybody in the community who's done contributions or have or watched the code this week want to make statements before we move on to the next part of the meeting? So Adam, to test the changes, you should switch to, we're working, the Rails and 3DB is in the dev tool is a release. So you need to switch to the Rails 3 and DB release. We recommend that you check out master for now. A lot of these changes we're making end up touching every bar clamp. And so those changes get a little bit exhausting at times, and we're trying to streamline our check-ins by staying on the master and not touching the OpenStack and Hadoop bar clamps every time. And so what you can do is use the dev tool to do a build. of the Rails and 3DB feature, and that build should pass and build in ISO so that you can try it. At this point, we don't have a SUSE build, OpenSUSE build working. We would love to see collaboration on that. We've been focused on Ubuntu as the target operating system right now. And there's been some work on an online build. I haven't played with that, so I can't speak to it. Greg, do you want to talk about the state of that?
Actually, maybe we should let Victor talk to it.
That would be awesome.
It works fine as long as you're me right now, and that's pretty much the state of the online build. It's one of those things I've been working on sort of when I don't have anything else to do in my schedule. So it's progressed to the point where with a little bit of tweaking, I can deploy a cluster based on Ubuntu 12.04 and CentOS 6.2, and I'm trying to remove the need for tweaking as I go along. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. If you want to try it, just set up either a basic Ubuntu server or CentOS 6.2 server install. Clone the Crowbar bar clamp, install the prerequisites the dev tool needs, and follow the readme online or readme.online install file. And you should wind up with a working admin node at the end of that. And if not, well, I will love to take your feedback.
Excellent. Cool. So, yeah, Victor, maybe I'll try and sit down with you and see if I can replicate that process sometime.
I've been making them in the development branch, and I'll port them around as needed. Changes in the dev tool tend to be pretty independent of everything else. So, pretty much the course of action I've been taking in making those changes is getting rid of the hard-coded dependency, or the hard-coded pointer to the Dell Cloudedge repository on origin. So you can use, so y'all can use the SUSE Crowbar account as your origin account, and just have the Dell Cloudedge account be another remote in the repository that you can pull code from and merge from, but just not have it be the default target. Okay, yeah, I mean, so yeah. So what we've been doing so far is actually using the personal remote as the SUSE sort of collaboration point amongst the team. So it's useful for us. I think we need the Dell remote as well, so that we can obviously push stuff from you and see what's going on. Even if that's not the default target for doing backups and so on. We're generally not using individual remotes at the moment. It's sort of personal. It covers the cat, and I suspect we'll probably want to keep it that way. Yeah, I'm just pretty leery about changing the semantics of how the personal repositories work. They're called personal because they're originally envisioned as, this is your backup on GitHub of everything you're doing, and you can change it at will, and you can use it as your target for generating pull requests to pull into Dell Cloudedge, or wherever, as the case will shortly be. And sure. And basically everyone on the team is using it in that mode, and I'm really leery about changing the semantics around it. Yeah, I completely understand that, and we had to hack the dev tool to prevent sort of forced pushes that overwrite history. So we should probably touch base offline on what we've done, and if we can figure out some kind of solution that works for everybody that's safe and flexible.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, and the other thing is the dev tool already understands how to add and remove remotes across all of the bar clamps. So it's pretty easy to go and just add a like a Dell remote that points at Dell Cloud Edge and just have something else be your origin or whatever. It's something that I use for testing other people's pull requests every now and then. I just add a remote for them in the dev tool, pull their stuff in, play around with it, and see how it works. Okay, yeah.
So this is exactly the type of thing that we want to capture in the plan. Have you guys coordinate offline and be able to coordinate it. I don't mind the discussion here where we do it, but I want to make sure we, if we identify single topic things, then we identify the people who need to talk, and we'll allocate time. We've already been allocating time for Victor to spend time with you and try and resolve these issues. The thing we didn't have was a contact who was going to work with him one-on-one.
So what I'll be doing probably this afternoon once we're finished with planning is to write up how I would envision the process flow for working with multiple remotes and a non-Dell Cloud Edge origin would go. Just how to set the repos, how to do pushing and pulling within an organization, how to handle pull requests into Dell Cloud Edge, that sort of thing.
Cool. But Adam, thank you. This is exactly the type of conversation that we do want to have in these meetings. That's why we're doing them. So, very good. Okay, so at this point, as per schedule, we switch and we do a process check. In some ways, the dev tool is probably more on our process side than the dev side, although they're going to be scheduled from the same resource pool. So this is more of an open mic this is the effectively third time, but the second community time we've done this meeting and the design meetings. We've been getting some attendance. We're not advertising them as heavily as I was planning to, while we got the process sort of working. In my opinion, it seems like this is pretty effective and getting more effective, but I'm interested in opening up the mic, hearing positive and negative feedback about how this process is and what would make things work better. And that includes from the Delta guys.
stuff working on the Essex Hack. Yeah, we were working on Essex Hack and moved Essex Hack into development, and then the comparable kind of release is the Fred set of trees, and that's probably equivalent of where we would deal with maintenance and upstream patches around Essex Hack build, right? Because that's what we merged Essex Hack into development, and then we've cloned development to, or branched, or whatever you want to call our term for it, Essex Hack into what became our Fred release. And so that's probably the closest code-wise tree to what you have. And then the development tree and the Rails 3 tree are kind of the Crowbar 2.0 trees. Right. So one thing worth mentioning is that we did a few weeks ago, one of our guys spent quite a bit of time upstreaming pretty much all the stuff that we had at the time in our own Essex Hack scissor branches. So I think I'm trying to remember which branch he submitted pull requests for all of that stuff to. I have a feeling it's probably gone back into your development trunk. Yeah, certainly it's time. Yeah, right. Also, bunch of y'all we've taken have gone into development. Okay, cool. So we haven't, at this point, we're not too early diverged, which is great. But of course, since then we've been coming up with other patches. I mean, probably not a huge amount of stuff, and pretty much all the stuff that we've done has been small commits, pretty easy to understand and digest. So it's not a kind of big concern, although with all the refactoring work that you're embarking on now, I am a bit worried that if we don't have some way of upstreaming stuff at all, then when we get to rebasing on 2.0 for our 2.0 release, then that could create a bit of pain. Yeah, that's something we'll have to work out, whether or not it'd be best to try to cherry pick the patches into Fred and forward them from there, or rewrite them, or whatever. But we'll just have to see how the code falls out of the refactor. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, with you guys, that's one of the major reasons why we're having these synchronization meetings. Because even though I know you guys are very focused on your release, can influence the design choices we're making, and can also understand the progress and see where it's going on. So. Okay. So, I guess we can continue this offline. I mean, we've got a limited amount of time to discuss things here, but so I guess we can sort of carry this discussion on the list. That leads into another thing that I wanted to raise, which is the topic of testing, and currently getting a better understanding of your testing criteria. So, for example, with this upstreaming discussion, if we come up with some simple patches for kind of obvious, things that can be fixed very easily, currently we don't have any way of testing whether those patches work on 2.0, but in some cases would those patches be something you'd want to take anyway and then test yourselves before we are in a position that we can test the patches. So in other words, if I have a simple patch for a simple bug that appears to be present in both the Essex Hack branches and the latest trunk, are you interested in receiving those kind of patches from me, even if I am unable to test them on the 2.0 trunk? Yes. Okay. Our 2.0 tree isn't in a stable enough condition where I'm worried about that level of problems. If anything breaks, it'll be lost in the noise at this point. Right. So in that regard, I'm not too worried about it. Down the road, we may worry about it more, but part of my hope is with some of the tutor work, we are getting better unit test frameworks in place so that this becomes more of a add it with a test kind of thing. And so those kind of things hopefully will start to fall out cleaner than they have in the past. But right now, we'll just send in the pull requests, and most likely I or Victor or Rob will just pull them in. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, that's what they're fixing. Yeah. As we can understand it, it's usually not a problem. Yeah, that feels fair. I understand what you're fixing. Okay, great. And then that speaks to my other question that I had about testing and unit testing and integration, continuous integration testing and so on. So it sounds like you have some thoughts around. Yeah, so right now we have our smoke tests that are out there, and we have our continuous integration that runs those on specific OS branch set pairs, and we watch those to see what's broken. Part of what we're trying to do is add and extend a lot of unit test, model testing, and controller testing to the actual Rails app so that we can start doing validations of those core components outside of like a smoke test or an integration test level. We still have a ways to go on unit testing chef recipes and that kind of stuff. Just because that's kind of everyone does this. Yeah, that's kind of a weirdness that I think the chef guys are just now getting around to kind of thinking of ways to do that. Some progress. I did hear that in Chef 11 they're going to have they're going to at least have the ability to ask why did something change when you do a run. That's sort of a dry run thing, which would help out there. So look for that kind of stuff. Because they're starting to put like the unit test framework in, so you can do rack unit tests and stuff like that on a build. Part of the work there is trying to also see if we can get some of those unit tests to run from like the actual bark map trees, but that's a little tricky. Because the Rails app is a kind of it's a built up thing, it's not each thing standing alone. So sometimes running unit tests isn't as simple as just go say run the unit test. Which is annoying. Are you saying we have a big ball of mud? So there's some examples beginning to show up. We have a kind of a BDD engine that's like Cucumber but faster that does lets us do like the actual controller and HTML testing to some degree. All those we plan on trying to expand and make a more rigorous set of testing so that we can get out of the well, is it going to break something kind of problem, which to be honest is kind of eating our lunch to some degree, right? Okay, so that's really good to know. I think it'd be really useful actually for me and the rest of my team if I don't know whether this is going to be possible, but if we could have a wiki page, a new wiki page, well maybe it already exists, I don't know, that basically has an inventory of all the existing tests that we have and explains how they work and how to run them, what they cover, what coverage is like, and then another section on that page that talks about the kind of strategy going forwards, some kind of roadmap, or even if there is barely a roadmap at this point, just we can just sort of put a skeleton there, and then that's something we could collaboratively start fleshing out and figure out. Adam, are you asking for a roadmap about testing specifically, or are you asking about? So one of the things that that is in the product now at 2.0 now is code trees. And there's actually a dev guide with a testing document, testing page. And so that type of request is actually, while the data's not there, that would be the place to store it, right? All that information about development and test coverage and how to do testing and where the tests are should end up in that document. So I know that some of the BDD testing, it's very skeletal right now, but that's where we should be putting it and looking for it close to where the code is. In the Rails and 3DB, that's where all that code is right now. It'll move to Tron eventually. Under the Crowbar bar clamp, in Crowbar framework, that's where all the UI pieces for the Crowbar bar clamp are, just like in 1X. There's a dot subdirectory. In that dot subdirectory, I know this sounds like a very deep task, but it's going to be under bar clamp, Crowbar, for the default language. It's in the Crowbar section, and then there's a dev guide subdirectory. And then inside of that, it's in that directory. And because it's written in Markdown, you can actually get there from GitHub. You don't have to check out the code. So you can set the Crowbar bar clamp, GitHub, find the right subdirectory, or the right branch, and drill down to it. Hey, Rob. Okay, well, leave it or not, I understand, Adam. I'm going to sync up. I'm going to be syncing up with Rob and just ping you directly, okay? On this very subject. I actually posted the link to that in a previous sprint page, and I'll make sure a link ends up in the sprint page. Sorry to walk you through a whole directory of it. Okay, thanks. I think I got most of that. And in fact, I had noticed some of the testing code and docs in that area before. I think that'll work fine in terms of having an inventory of existing test code and documentation around how to run those tests. I'm not convinced it's going to work for collaborating on a strategy for testing going forward. Because if we have a strategy document that exists in multiple branches or even one branch, then if it's in multiple branches, then obviously we'll just get people kind of committing to the wrong branch, and things will get very confused because the strategy should be covering, multiple branches at once. And if we only have it in one branch, then that's just kind of annoying for people who aren't regularly working in that specific branch. So I would rather, if possible, that the strategy side of things was covered by a wiki page. And GitHub does let you check out the whole wiki as a normal Git repository. So the people who prefer to work in their favorite editor rather than on the browser, that shouldn't be a barrier. So does that sound like a reasonable solution? I think so, yeah. And there probably is something to be said about having a consolidated, coverage across all of the various branches and development efforts and kind of outlined at a high level. We can certainly go and see what we can do there. I'll make it a point to highlight either a location where we started something or the path forward or what's to do there, and I contact you directly with the other items. Okay. Sorry, thanks. Just for clarity, this isn't doing work in the Rails 3DB, that's where the new models are. It's effectively Tron. Right? We're not trying to create different branches with different test strategies. Rails 3DB is just to have a Tron tool merge back in with going. Okay. Right, this is Richard B. Switching to planning for next sprint. So, can you Claire, can you kind of give us a rundown on what's planned for the next one, so we all know roughly? Roughly, we're going to continue working on updating core models and adding unit tests, hooking in user authentication. Hopefully, we'll see the ability to create some of the network objects, and continued cleanup of the UI in the Rails 3 branch. Hopefully, by the end of the sprint, we might, seems aggressive, but we might merge Rails 3 and DB back into development so we have one development tree. But I'm leery, not sure we'll be quite ready to. It's just a week. And hopefully we'll see, for the new models, abstractions, the CMDB abstractions being able to import or pull into Crowbar node and information from the like chef in this case. That sounds like the basic Crowbar 2.0 plan. I think that, yeah, I can't think of anything. I think that's a pretty solid list. Anything changing in breath? Not must be for the two above. Okay, so yeah, and so I guess the spread tree will just be stable. I mean, my thought for this sprint is that Fred, only get bug fixes. Yeah. We're not backporting anything from the sprint. So I think that's it. I think that's the general plan for what we're doing. For what? Is there any, and then is there, Adam, is there any plans for you guys to kind of, you mentioned you had small R patches and stream stuff and all that kind of stuff. Do you have a specific plan on when next week throughout the next week you're going to go and start pushing those? Is it going to be, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? What's the plan around those? Good question. I mean, right now we're just about to produce release candidate 1, so we're a pretty critical phase of sort of testing that. So it might not be in the next few days, but I need to sync up with some of the guys on my team anyway. So I'll talk to them about what we discussed today, and most likely it's going to be a kind of a trickle effect. That will just bit by bit send things across, and every pull request we send across is probably going to be very lightweight and simple to deal with. But they may not happen all in one go. We do have one or two tools for doing a comparison with upstream, so we can see which things haven't been upstreamed yet. So we'll continue to monitor that as part of that process. And I guess the other thing, so I don't know whether we should plan it for this Crowbar sprint or what we were discussing earlier about collaboration around sort of somehow unifying the build processes. So explaining to you guys how our build works and what we've done with the installation shell scripts in the extra subdirectory in the top level Crowbar repository. So I'm aware that currently there are sort of distro agnostic files in the common stuff and then common stuff across all Ubuntu releases and all releases and so on. And there's a kind of semi-structured plug-in type of approach to dealing with multiple distros. So that's something we haven't looked into yet. I think it's something we definitely should. But at the moment, we have an install chef user.sh script, which is based on the install chef.sh, but has been cannibalized probably beyond recognition at this point. So that's something that we do want to unify again. So we'll need to kick off that discussion. But I don't know because of our current release candidate phase. I don't know whether that's something we'll have time for in the next week or so. Just so I understand, how long are your sprints?
1 week. We're doing 1 week right now.
Okay, right. I think we're on 3-week sprints at the moment. Two or three. So yeah, again, I'll think up our guys and then let you know. But yeah, let's aim to start collaborating on that in the next couple of sprints. I would say.
Yeah, because I think we have a Crowbar 2.0 feature that we haven't gotten to yet or started work on that is based off of some of the stuff we saw in the Suse tree. And a lot of it is because we're just reworking some of the core stuff right now. But one of the Crowbar 2 features is to convert Crowbar to use more distro-based packaging. So, because after looking at some of the stuff you all have done, I think, and just from an ease of use in the rest of the distros, it'd be good to be able to package Crowbar into the base packages and then install those and push those around. So some of the stuff that you guys have in your file is because you have those things as packages and distro ready packages, right? And so I think that's one of the things we want to do for Crowbar 2 is to convert all of our distros trees to do that. Just because it's easier to manage and stuff. There's some technical issues around that we probably want to work through, particularly around gems and dependencies. But that may be a divergence or a continued divergence, but that's something that we need to work through.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway, that to me is something that when we would love to do a lot more collaboration on, and we're probably not ready to do that for the next week or couple weeks.
Okay. That should work out.
The meeting. Right. Yeah, no, in reality, that's where my brain started on and left off. To me, this would be a great topic to have at a design meeting on Tuesdays to flesh out what we want to do on that, and that may be a good topic for 2 weeks or whatever when you guys are available.
Okay, that sounds great. We would definitely like to help with that, and for sure we've done a lot of work around the packaging. Arguably more work on that than on the actual Crowbar code itself. I'm not sure. So I would almost certainly expect that we could save you a lot of time with, for example, writing spec files for all the various components for the Crowbar core and for each bar clamp. All that stuff is done and would probably translate pretty easily over to Red Hat and CentOS. And then, from there, obviously Ubuntu builds packages in a completely different way, but you still got the same information essentially about, how does the build work and what are the files that go into the resulting package and so on. And if we can do that in a unified way across all distributions, so in particular, get consistent naming conventions around package names, then that's to save a lot of pain, because that's something that unfortunately didn't happen with OpenStack between SUSE and Red Hat possibility of sharing spec files there, but I think at this stage it may be too late. So it would be a shame if that same thing happened to Crowbar, because we can probably reuse a lot of the effort. And the other thing is that this may have been mentioned to you already by Jim, one of our guys who attended your 2.0 design summit. We do have our open build service is very capable of building packages for Red Hat, Debian, and Ubuntu, and so on as well. And sort of doing that in a unified manner across multiple distributions. And we have that's been working on a large scale for quite a long time now. So it may even make sense to utilize that for automatically cranking out packages for Red Hat and maybe even Ubuntu. And there is the build service also then gives you ISO building for free. It's a pretty sophisticated kind of thing where you just say, okay, I want this repository to have these packages, and then this ISO should be built from this repository, a combination of this repository and this base OS, and these updates or whatever. We've got a lot of capabilities around that make building ISOs and productizing set of packages very easy.
Adam, all those things sound like great benefits. As you guys pull off your release cycle and get engaged, it's exactly the type of work that we should be collaborating with. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that we give people a chance to pick up any blocks that they have in the next week, because we're going to go into planning in 5 minutes on our team, and if there's something to do to help resolve a block, and you brought up the dev tool, so definitely accommodate that. Is there anybody else who wants to do this block in the next collaborating on Crowbar? I mean, you just help with that. I'm not sure if anybody actually heard the last question. It was somewhat mumbled there in the background, but yeah, I'm not on a great phone connection. Do you want to repeat it? Did you repeat that in time? Yeah, actually, I couldn't understand it either. So if anybody could, Dave, okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me better now? Yes, much better. Good. Sorry then. What I was asking is, we have a couple minutes to discuss if anybody's blocked in the next week, because the Dell team's about to go into our planning, so if somebody needs help or assistance to get unblocked, this is our time to find that out. So if anybody on the phone needs assistance to get unblocked, so they can contribute in next week. I would say that is probably no. It is very important to me and to us to make sure that if somebody wants to collaborate, that nothing that we're doing is blocking that. So part of this, the major purpose of this meeting is to make sure that if we are not blocking or inhibiting collaboration if people want to participate. Good. Okay. With that said, you guys want to bring this to a close? Our team needs to go off and figure out what we're going to do for the next week. Right. So yeah, I'm going to clean up these notes a little bit on some of the bits, and then I'll send them out to the list as usual, and I'll probably be highlighting specific to-dos that we come up around here. So thanks for everybody. I think I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
You are the last party in the conference.
Actually,
It's on my bridge.